I want to share a really beautiful experience I had recently. I was at a gala event for a client, and it was a performing artist event, but what I noticed was that they brought in elements of the visual as well. So it was a beautiful collaboration of written and verbal and performing arts. And it just made me think about how much art is therapy, whatever medium we're talking about. And it does have an effect on our nervous system, on our feelings, our emotions, our thoughts, our habits, our behaviors. And if you think about it that way, and I'd like for you to do that for a moment, to reflect on a piece of art, whether it is performing, whether it is visual, whatever medium you choose. But for this instance, I'd like you to think about a visual piece of art and think about how it makes you feel. Maybe it's even in your room. Maybe it's a piece of art you created. What does it emote for you? Because that's where we're going to go today. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation with my friend LeeAnn Heltzel. She is a multi-dimensional artist, a conscious explorer, a creator of what is called MetaArt. This is frequency-infused abstract paintings designed as portals for ocular meditation. And we're gonna go into it, LeeAnn, right? And I want so much for people to understand the value that comes from being exposed to a piece of artwork and how it can change them, but also how you can bring your own self into the work that you do. So good to have you here. I've been waiting for this conversation.
Oh, Hilary, so have I. Thank you so much for having me on. And I love what you were inviting the listeners to do because it is so true. There's art all around us. And oftentimes, I mean, it can be in a painting or in a dance or words in a poem, but it can also be in that tree or the way that sun is coming in and hitting the wall and casting shadows in the room, right? And there is a science behind it. There's this element that happens in the brain when we're talking about art that activates it's called the aesthetic triad, and it's the part of your brain that links sensory input with emotion and meaning. And that's why when you quiet and gaze at art like you invited people to do, and do so intentionally, your body naturally begins to regulate. The heart slows, breathing steadies, and emotions move instead of getting stuck. So, even in that simple act, there's so much value that we tend to overlook. So, thanks so much to bringing that to the forefront. Meta art and ocular meditation just up levels it a little bit, but it's in everything we look at.
And I really want us to discuss that and talk about ocular meditation. You and I actually met because we are getting ready to embark on this amazing event on December 21st, which is the winter solstice, but it is also the Millions Meditation. This is a global event that both of us are part of, and we're gonna have a little bit more on that, on how you can get involved because you absolutely can. But meditation, ocular, we're talking about visual. What is this? Like, just let's talk about it. Let's talk about the ocular meditation.
Yes, thanks. Because so many people don't think about, oh, I'm going to meditate. They think about closing their eyes, right? And but the fact is that when you have those moments, you might catch yourself just staring at the ocean, just looking at a candle flame, or if you're at a bonfire, just watching the flickers of the golden color rise up in the air. And your thoughts just kind of naturally stop and you center. That's ocular meditation. And so what I'm doing in regard to my art is kind of formalizing it. So when done with art, and in my case with meta art, it's a simple way to access that stillness through beauty. Our brain appreciates and aligns with beauty. And so you don't have to force the mind to quiet. the art's doing it for you. And I always say too that the art is kind of entertaining the brain. So it works really well for people that say, "Oh, I just can't quiet my mind. I'm really not good at meditating." The art and the beauty of it, the shapes, the colors, actually assists in the process. So when you meditate with your eyes open with MetaArt, you simply soften your gaze, take a breath, and the color and the form entrains your system back into coherence. So it's really where emotion begins to harmonize rather than overwhelm our systems.
And you know where this is really important for people to understand and give themselves permission to do this, because in the work I do, I use visualization a lot, especially as a havening practitioner, where part of it is visualization. Some people don't visualize well. Some people can't close their eyes and see beyond the blackness of their eyes closed. So, giving people an option to soft gaze on something that brings them peace and joy and comfort and rest, whatever it might be, is an offering of how they can bring this beautiful nervous system practice into play without feeling like they're doing something wrong. Because I think that's the one question I get a lot, LeeAnn, or a statement rather, with clients who are just trying out havening for the first time or working with me. They're like, "Am I doing this wrong? I'm not seeing anything." I'm like, "Well, are you, if you don't visualize well, then choose to focus on something in a way that will bring you that sense of peace and joy." And what better way to do that than to find a piece of artwork that can really impact you in that positive way?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is the beauty of what meta art is, because each piece is a specific frequency. So you could meditate with the frequency of love, the frequency of peace, the frequency of joy. And so that everything is energy, right?
Mhm.
And so you don't have to be thinking in your brain, "Oh, I'm looking at love," or "I'm focusing on love." It's literally interacting with you and subtly, right? So that's the beauty of that combination of taking a practice of ocular meditation and teaming it up with a very powerful visual piece of art. So, and many of my pieces do have sound, because
Mhm.
we know that sound heals as well. So there's many pieces that do include sacred sound that has been created specifically for the experience as well. So you can imagine, the brain is really being entrained back into regulation between the sound, the soothing sound, and the beautiful colors. So it's a way to use our environment. And art is accepted by everyone, right? It's not this odd thing like, "Oh, now I'm going to meditate and I go through this odd process." No, art is everywhere, and it's intrinsically a part of humanity.
And it's personal. It's different to every person. We can be standing in front of the same piece of artwork and completely have a different feeling to it, reaction to it, thought about it. And I think that's what makes every medium of art so special, is that it is so personal and intentional to the person standing before it
Absolutely.
and viewing it, listening to it, feeling it, touching it, whatever it might be. My question for you really is, I know being an artist is where your heart is, but there is a story behind that with LeeAnn. Like, what brought you to this work? And doing it in so a way where it's just, I'm not just an artist painting or creating. There's an element of the traumas to triumphs, as we call it, the emotional, the nervous system. You're bringing in a lot of elements that I'm not sure everybody thinks about as an artist. So, what brought you to that place?
Great question. Yeah, my life has been, I was always an artist. I went to art school. I went down the route of art direction. So I got into advertising and marketing. So very, I don't know, clinical, right? We need to get ROI results. So it became very kind of mechanical, and really hadn't experienced painting and just freely expressing myself on a canvas in decades. But at the same time, that was my career. And as a personal life, I consider myself an explorer of human potential. So I worked under the Jean Houstons and Barbara Marx Hubbards, and I took a very um, focused path on my spiritual life and that unfolding. And so over the decades of my life, I work with Christ consciousness. I'm a death doula, and I assist people through the active dying process from the side of spirit. And I just support the individual as they are ushered into the light, basically. And so all of that matters because that was the element that got me working in more of the multidimensional realms, those subtle realms, and everything started making more sense to me about what life is. And so I blended that multidimensional capacity that I had to with my marketing clients. I own my own marketing firm. So when I blended those two, my client base began to be very focused on companies that are here to serve humanity and that understood that humans do have this capacity to go in these higher realms. And so it was really an offshoot of that I started creating retreats with my marketing clients where I was channeling these paintings of their highest essence and their highest work that they were giving the world. And then they had these paintings that they would meditate with. And then when COVID happened, I was at Jennifer's house, a mutual friend of ours, and I understood that I needed to create and channel the frequency of peace. And I did so, and then began to have this whole new understanding because then I was meditating with it. It wasn't something I was providing for a client. I was able to understand and experience myself how it took the trauma and stress of my body that kept looping in that fight or flight, especially during COVID, right? And into to channel peace. So I had the experience of it coming through me, but then to engage with it and then to understand that the visual cortex and the limbic system, that they're all synchronizing. And so that it all started making scientific sense to me. I was just following my inner guidance and what I was being guided to do. So as I experienced the feeling of safety and the allowance of letting my emotions complete a cycle without story or judgment, because when you're looking at this art, you're not thinking, and but you can feel everything just balancing. Many times people tell me, and I know I've done it myself, oftentimes you may cry when you're in this process, or smile or sigh, because the body is literally exhaling. So as I began to experience that with myself, and then I would hear the next one, channel the frequency of joy, channel the frequency of love. At that point, I was all in, and I understood that this was something that all of these frequencies are here on the earth, but we absolutely need more of them. And we need a new way to activate them, to engage with them, and to really, really begin to allow those to be in our bones so that we have the tools we need, right? In every aspect of life. But I witnessed it through myself first, and that's what really has impassioned me to continue on this route.
Is it difficult ever to create art with that in mind when you're really I take it you spend time with clients that you're creating the art for?
Yes.
And being that you have also this background as a death doula, which is so personal and intimate, regardless of what that person's upset or experiences are, or even their traumas, how are you able to keep yourself separate in a way from it being, well, like compassion fatigue, secondary traumatic stress, and really embody the essence of who they are and put it into the art so it's really personal to them?
So through the death doula work that I do, I am in that space with Christ
Yeah.
consciousness. So I'm blending with that. And it's a higher, more refined level of the
Mm.
individual, right? Like I'm dealing with their higher self energy, which is different than the individual here living the stressful life in the trauma, all of that. So I'm at that 50,000 foot view with that person, and I am, it's flowing through me. So I liken it to, if I were doing a painting specifically for you,
Hmm.
if I was doing commission
Hmm.
piece for Hilary, I'm entering that highest essence space of Hilary, and that's what I'm swimming in, and that's what's coming through me in on through my hands onto the canvas. And so that's why the painting truly is that essence piece, that frequency. So it's not a representation of where the person is here on the day to day. It's their, what I call their fully realized divine self. It's that version of the person that is fully realized, is fully evolved.
And there's such a connection between you as the artist and the person who you are creating for. And I'll tell you, I had a really beautiful experience with that myself recently on a very small scale, but a big scale in a way. When I went to this event that I spoke about at the beginning of this conversation, there was a medium there who was also doing watercolor while she was working with each person. And she created a very small piece, but it actually just hit me so hard. She created this beautiful waterfall while we were sitting there, saying that being near water is important to you, which it so is. And I said nothing to her. And the fact that she brought up the waterfalls, which I thought was amazing, because I have this big trip that's planned overseas to go to New Zealand, and one of the places that I cannot wait to go to is the Milford Sound, which is one of the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th wonders of the world, something like that. And it just really hit me hard when I realized that, oh gosh, she's kind of matching my frequency here. And that was a 5-minute watercolor. I can only imagine you
Right.
taking it to the next level with these micro rituals that you create, right? And the meta art and the ocular meditation that gives people a chance to really look at that piece after and say, wow, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it.
Absolutely. It becomes such an encompassing experience. So
Mhm.
I do, just
Mhm.
a frequency, heal, love, right? Like as I mentioned. But then when I do a commission piece specifically for a person, it is their highest self. And I create, my role is to bring the painting in, and they work with it however they wish, and whatever's right for them. But I had one client that I just love what she did with it. She has the painting leaned against the wall, and then she's facing a mirror, a big mirror, sitting on a meditation cushion, right? So that behind her is her art. So it's her and her art behind her, and she looks into her own eyes when she meditates. And what happens is she literally goes away. Her reflection becomes the artwork, and all she can see is this little highlight around her form. She literally becomes one with her artwork. And when she's in that stage, she is she's conversing with her higher self.
Hmm.
She's getting this profound information. And that's what I love so deeply about this work,
Yeah.
is that it isn't something outside of the person, right? It's you working with your own divinity, using art as the tool or the kind of reflector of that divinity.
Hmm.
And so you could be looking at peace, and you're going to receive everything that you personally need, physically, emotionally, spiritually, from that piece. And it'll, like you said earlier, completely different for the next person. And what's even more exciting, completely different the next time you sit with it, because
Your
you're
experiences.
completely,
Right.
Yeah, you're different.
Your life experiences, everything you went through just from the moment you opened your eyes the next day. And I do want to mention to our wonderful listeners and audience, you're creating a really beautiful experience and offering for those who tune into Holistically Speaking. You're offering 20% off any MetaArt reproduction. And these are frequency infused prints of her original paintings designed for eyes open meditation, right? That soft gaze and nervous system regulation. And you know what I feel about nervous system regulation here. And even better, there's a code you can use. You're going to know this one because I talk about it all the time. Hug It Out 20 at the checkout. I'm going to put LeeAnn's website in the notes of this podcast. And when you go there and you look at her art and you grab something, put Hug It Out 20 in the checkout and you'll get 20% off. Do this, bring this into your world, level up the healing and the growth and just your absolute love of yourself and the art that exists around us. So thank you for doing that. I love that you're sharing that. Let's talk a little bit about the millions meditation if we can. That's one of the reasons why we are together as friends, which I do consider you a friend now. We've sat through many a meetings and we're watching this unbelievable event grow. Nothing like it of its kind has ever been done. I guess the best way to think about it is think about New Year's Eve where it's being televised all over the world, frequency all over the world where people are tuning in just to say Happy New Year. And this is kind of like the Happy New Year of the winter solstice, right? That December 21st date. But what better way to welcome that in than to create this global meditation? And that's what we're doing with the Millions Meditation and the Millions Meditating. It's going to be an unbelievable event on December 21st. What made you say yes to being a part of this?
Oh my gosh. That opportunity, right? That opportunity to create measurable coherence in the human energy field.
Mhm.
Any opportunity to do that. And really kudos to the UN to be putting this focus out into the world, to be bringing this focus. And what I love is that we're bringing together voices and hearts obviously from around the world, but we're doing it to every form of prayer and meditation that you can imagine. So we're kind of like this clearinghouse, right? You can go on the website, you can look in the map, you can see maybe you want to go in person and be with a group of like-minded people, or maybe you've never heard of a certain style of meditation and you just want to experience that. It's just there for you to choose what you align with. And that makes it even more powerful, right? Because again, the person's in control. They can have this experience however they want. And the goal, everything that I do is around frequency, right?
Mhm.
And so that opportunity to amplify frequency of peace on the planet on the winter solstice, it's like I'm all in on that.
That's that's how I felt when we both know each other through Lauren and Lauren Lamore, who is putting this together and bringing us all together, really. This whole project has been such a labor of love where we're all bringing our different pieces of who we are together and our communities to create this global impact of what it can be to to just be in our own moment and self, our truest form. And that and bringing in different elements, whether it is meta art or havening or sitting in silence or breath work. I mean, we have some amazing people behind this, you guys. So definitely check the
Yeah.
notes of the podcast. I'll put a link on how you can be a part of it, how you can join LeeAnn, how you can join me, or maybe even create your own meditation community and join us on this global level. So what is your hope for it going forward?
Yeah, I see it going, as does Lauren, so far beyond the 21st. For the 21st just to really be the start. It's easy enough to sign up. You can go on the website and either sign up
Mhm.
as an individual, or if you are a part of an organized group, organize it and put it there as well. And so those for to have those connections happen and to see what is able to happen after the 21st, that's what I'm excited
Hmm.
about. What can this grow into if we make this impact that we know that we're going to be making around peace and healing and awakening? I just can't even imagine what we can bring in to 2026 and beyond.
Yeah. So amazing. And just to give you a little idea, this is like the UN, as LeeAnn mentioned, it's World Meditating Day. So this is an opportunity to take some time out for yourself. We should always give ourselves time, but we rarely do because we're connected to the machines and we're running and doing and doing and doing. And if we just give ourselves a little more time for being, I mean, imagine how that in itself can just regulate our nervous system, right? So I'm excited that we're a part
Exactly.
of this together. It's such a beautiful opportunity, and yeah, kudos to the UN for creating this possibility to even begin, right? I want to go back a little bit because we didn't really talk about it, what it means to be a death doula. For those who are not aware, I mean, we've covered it on the show a couple years ago, but how do you come into that type of work? Or I don't even know if you call it work. It's really more, how do you come into that type of purpose that you take on something like that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, first off, there's different kinds of death doulas. There's the
Hmm.
kind that sit with the person, bedside and support the family, support the individual, and I can do that. I just recently have done that for a loved one.
Hmm.
But I work from the side of spirit, again, working with Christ consciousness and serving their spirit. So many times people at the end of life, just honestly a combination of where society um, thinks about what death is and and what it actually is. Like, it isn't this thing to be feared. It's really this sacred transition and is incredibly beautiful and profound, and we have forgotten that as a humanity. So it's kind of filling that gap. Many times as people are in that process of dying, they're kind of like holding on tight, like they have a fear of something. And usually it's something around their loved ones, or it can be the fact that, listen, my soul came in to experience A, B, and C, and I only experienced A and B. It could be lots of things. And so my role, again, with Christ consciousness, is I only have one thing that I present. What do you require? And that person can respond to me, right? And they could require many things, but that is my only role. And it's just the most profound. I can't even really put words around what the experience is to see that ushering and to to witness a person just cross into the light, that there is no sadness around that, because when they're at that place, there's no regrets, there's no, it's simply them leaving the room and entering into a new room. It just happens to be filled with light, and they happen to not need a body anymore. But it completely reworks what death is. And so just like there's birth doulas that help souls come in, I'm a death doula that helps souls go out. And it there's training. You can absolutely find certifications on organizations that teach it. It came to me very organically in through the years of me on my spiritual path. Again, my focus is human potential, which to me is not connected to religion, really, right? It's if we only use a small percentage of our brain, we know that, right? What's the other like 90% there for? Like, that's what I've always been driven with. what are we truly capable of as humans? And and so my searching of what can that be, this is what came in. And I didn't actually like it at first because I didn't want to work with death. It's kind of dark. I, would I work with people that are actively dying, but I also work with people that have very recently died. So I get a lot of calls of my, brother-in-law just committed suicide. It's
Yeah,
a lot of dark kind of, um, and that person is in a very confused place, somebody that has
sure.
died very suddenly. So at the beginning, it was like, oh, seriously, this is my gift. Like I didn't want it. And it wasn't until a very close family member passed years ago, actually three within 12 days of each other, that helping my loved ones go through that process, that I realized, oh, this is actually the greatest thing that I could ever do.
Hmm. Our agenda is usually not the one that winds up being the agenda.
Yeah, and I was recently at a conference for IONS, which studies near death experiences,
Yeah,
and there is such a buzz. There are so many people coming up to me and saying, "I never heard of a death doula. I think I want to be a death doula." There's definitely an increase of awareness
yeah,
around it, and I know that it's a deeper awareness of the value of it.
yeah.
As we evolve, this understanding, these kind of misconceptions need to be healed and evolved, just like everything else.
Mhm.
And I see that happening out in the world.
Beautiful. Thank you for all you do, whether it is the art or being there to support somebody or some family or both on whatever the journey might be, right? So you're doing beautiful work. It definitely piqued my interest, and there is more of an awareness around death because I think especially in our culture, not all cultures, there's such a business around death that it has become something that it's negative. There's greeting cards for it. There's a process and a procession and you wear black and it's dark and there are other cultures that celebrate it and it doesn't have to be glorified and there's no right or wrong. But I think in our culture, death means loss, grief, sadness, and those are part of the stages, absolutely. But, knowing that there could possibly be more and that it's part of the story and being able to celebrate someone's life while they're even still here as they transition, that's what fascinates me the most personally. That's my personal thought about it. So, and I imagine there are others out there that are tuning in that possibly feel the same way.
It's interesting, Hilary. It's making me think of one instance that I had. A friend, actually somebody I just know through somebody, knew that I was a death doula, and she called me and she said, my best friend is dying and I would be interested in your death doula work. My response is always, well, I need permission. I need permission for that person. So would you like to give permission for her? And she said, oh no, she's going to give permission. She's coherent. So I knew that that was going to be different. I've never been given permission from the person dying. And so she brought the computer to her, you know, room in ICU, and she was meditating with Unity. So she's meditating with a piece of MetaArt that has beautiful sacred sound with it, as I was communing with her in that kind of higher space. And I was able to communicate back to her what her higher self was telling her. And so it was, and I actually, I, I have permission to use it, and I have it, that I could read. But she was basically, her higher self was basically telling her where she was going and how profoundly beautiful it was, and that she was just love. She was love. And that any time in her life that she didn't feel heard or that she didn't feel accompanied, that now she was in love. She was just in this, and it was so profoundly beautiful that that was able to be given to her. So she just had like this on this side of the veil where she was going. It was unbelievable. And since then, I have channeled a frequency painting that is called Crossing the Veil. So
Mm.
it supports a person that would like to communicate with people on the other side of the veil, or enter into, if they've had a near death experience, to receive support around understanding that. So it is just honestly another room.
Another space. There's always space, right? Abundance of space. Let me just remind folks that LeeAnn has a beautiful offering, 20% off any MetaArt reproduction. And these are frequency infused prints from her originals that are designed for the eye opening meditation, for nervous system regulation, for joy, for peace, whatever you see in a piece that resonates with you by going on her website, leeannheltzel.com/store. We're going to put that in the notes of the podcast. Go in there, find something that resonates with you and aligns with you. If you grab it, you're going to get 20% off by using Hug It Out 20, right? Hug it out. That's another way that you can hug it out with yourself, right? We talk about in the healing, there's a little humor, understanding, gratitude, what comes from within. What piece do you understand that has to do with you? What piece brings you gratitude? What piece gives you a sense of humor, right? So hug it out with yourself, grab a piece, and join us for the Millions Meditating on the 21st of December. I will also have more on that in the notes of the podcast. But before we go, Miss LeeAnn, I have a game that I play with all of my guests, which is called Brain Candy. And I've been writing down some words that you have said during this conversation. I'm going to throw out a word. You're going to come back with the first word that comes to mind.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, one word. Here we go. Explorer.
Oh, potential.
Marketing.
Manipulation. Sorry.
Listen, I mean, if that's what comes to mind, your brain is thinking something. It's something to think about too. This game is for you as well. Transformation.
Life.
Clarity.
Love.
Frequency.
Art.
Unity.
That's more than one word, but all that is.
That's okay. Divinity.
Me. You.
Yay. I love that. Death.
Life.
Ocular.
Meditation.
Great. Trauma.
Opportunity.
Meditating.
Evolving.
Meta.
Art.
Yeah.
And I do want to mention as well, you mentioned the 20% off. That would also be on a commission painting. So it's
beautiful.
not.
So you can, okay, great. So you can have something created personally to you if one of the reproductions is not what you want. I actually love that offering even more. So
Yeah.
let me just add that you can have the reproduction that you purchase, or you can hire LeeAnn to do a beautiful commission based on everything we spoke about here. I would say that would be the way to go. I do want to ask you something. How connected you are connected to music? You love music and sound, and you bring that into your work. So my question to you is there a song that LeeAnn identifies with that is kind of your walk-in music song, or something that, like, every time you hear it, it just makes you want to create?
Well, I would say there's a song. It's not that it makes me want to create. There's a song when I hear it, it just kind of lights me up, and I'm not even sure why. Maybe it's because I'm a child of the 60s and 70s, but for some reason, when I hear Hotel California, like the mystery of it, like the layeredness, the complexity of it, what does it really mean? I don't even know. that will be blaring and I will be belting it out wherever I
Mm.
wherever I am. So yeah, I think it's like the mystery of what that song is even about.
There's so many different theories about that song,
Yes.
and I think again, like art, even even though the artists that created that song might have their interpretation, it doesn't have to be your interpretation. And I love that song too,
Right.
especially, I mean, the opening with the chords, it pulls you in, simple chords just pulling you in. That's a great choice. We'll have to put that on the playlist for Holistically Speaking. And then, since we talked a little bit about Hug It Out, and again, thank you. Let me just say thank you for offering the 20% off the Hug It Out 20 for you in the healing. What is something that embodies LeeAnn as far as humor? Like, how do you bring humor into your work?
That's interesting because I'm like completely engulfed in whatever the frequency is that I'm painting. And there's all sorts of aspects to it. There's joy, there is humor, there's um playfulness. I would say more than humor, there's playfulness.
That's good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
Playfulness, and I think sometimes we forget about our childish enthusiasm because we think we gotta be adulting all the time, but that child side of us is so present, and I think we need to let them out more, you know? That's good.
absolutely. Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
humor for you is playfulness. What about when it comes to understanding yourself? What is something you understand more about LeeAnn now than you did years ago?
Well, again, because I'm actually in that frequency, I am it's reflecting onto me, and it's breaking apart my conceptions about what things are. And so I actually do what I call meta insights. It's like a mediumship kind of reading with the frequency before I paint it. And it's always like when I got the information for grace, what I'm hearing, what grace is, it's like, oh, that's not the definition of the word that I think
Mm.
grace is. It's actually completely different and so multifaceted and deep. And and so for me to kind of learn that and understand it and then feel it as I'm painting it is just it's it's crazy and it's fun.
Yeah.
It is very freeing.
So that would be your understanding of who you are now compared to who you've
Yeah, I
been?
mean it's just always unfolding,
Mm,
right? Like the next
right.
painting that I'll do, I'll like peel off another layer and go, "Whoa, okay, that's a much deeper aspect that of whatever it is that then is part of me." So I've been evolving and deepening through this process.
If you were standing in front of your younger self right now, like, what would you say to her from the growth and the understanding you have towards yourself now compared to the younger LeeAnn? What would be a simple thing that you would just say to her?
Oh my gosh, Hilary, I would just look her in the eye and say, honey, you never had to be afraid.
Mm.
You never had to
Woo.
be afraid.
Okay, I felt that. Like, I just my whole entire body just went tingly.
Yeah,
And, I mean, when it really comes down to it, it's all about safety,
it
right?
really
It
is.
really is,
It really
whatever that
is.
means. Whatever that means, it really is about having a sense of safety, who we are around, our environment, the thoughts, everything, you know? So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. What is something about LeeAnn that she's grateful for about herself?
That I took the chances, that I took the leaps, right? That I listened to the inner guidance that I was getting and and I stopped being afraid, right? Even though I mean I was still like, oh geez, what am I doing? I'm leaping. And that we require those leaps. The two words that I always say are the keys to that is surrender and trust, right? Surrender and trust and surrender and trust what? That life has your back. Life truly has your back. And the more that we can surrender into that and trust into that, then life rises up to meet us. And those leaps become not fearful, but more like pure excitement. Like, oh my gosh, what can possibly happen that could be so wonderful? So that leaping off the edge becomes an anticipation rather than a nail biting kind of experience.
Life has your back.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hear the universe has got your back, but this embodies even more, right? There's
Yeah.
the entity of the universe, but life is who we are. I mean, it's what we are. It's everything.
It's this experience.
It's this experience.
It's this experience.
In this moment.
And I say this I've lived through a lot of trauma, right? It's none of us have walked a path of like, oh my gosh, everything's, stardust and unicorns. Like it happened through those challenges and through that trauma that I actually learned that. And it's one thing to know it. It's one thing to think it. It's one thing to believe it. It's a totally different thing to live it.
Yeah.
And that's the sweet spot, right? Is to actually live it.
Yeah. The time between the bookends. Live it, be it, absorb it, paint it, watch it, sing it, listen to it, meditate it, whatever you might do. Just love that. What a beautiful way to close this conversation. I adore you. I'm so elated and grateful to have you in this space and to be able to connect and collaborate with you. I know we have more conversations coming off the mic, but I'm so glad I was able to share you with Holistically Speaking and the audience. And I imagine it's going to just create more connections. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. You are such a blessing to the world.
There are so many beautiful opportunities being presented to you during this episode. First, I highly recommend you visit LeeAnn's website, take a look at her work. If something touch, moves, and inspires you in any way with her MetaArt, or you would like to commission her to create something personal, something intimate, use that code HUGITOUT20 for 20% off. I've put the link to her website in the notes of this podcast so that you can get in touch with her, you can reach out to her, you can connect with her. And please join us for the Millions Meditating on December 21st. We are both part of this amazing worldwide event that I'm actually going to be hosting, as well as leading a very special Havening happy hour. In fact, there might be more than one during that day. And this is an opportunity to hug it out with yourself on a global level, to be kind to your mind worldwide. So join us for Millions Meditating. See the link in the notes of this podcast, as well as on my website to register for this special Havening happy hour at hilaryrusso.com/events. That's under the events section, and we hope to see you there. Music for this show is provided by the amazingly talented Lipone Redding, my dear friend, and supported, embraced, and loved by you. So thank you. It never goes unnoticed. If I could leave you with one thing, it is this: to think about art as not being something that's outside of yourself. It is not just around you, but rather it's within you. What is your frequency that connects to it? What is your color palette? What is your song? Go there. On that note, I love you, I believe in you, and I'm sending hugs your way. Be well.